Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
My friends, this situation with Graham Platner is starting to look a lot like a hostage negotiation. This thing is unbelievable. Headline here, New York Post, which I'll get into in due course here. Headline, Graham Platner holding Democrat Party hostage, refusing to drop out unless he gets to name his successor, according to sources written here by Josh Christensen of the New York Post. Again, apparently Graham Platner is treating this 2026 Maine Senate race like a hostage negotiation. And why wouldn't he, my friends, given the state of where we are today? It's a pleasure, by the way, to be here. Appreciate you tuning in to America's home for conservative, not bitter talk. I'm your host, the one and only benevolent dictator here behind the microphone, Todd Huff. There we go. Had to grab something off of my printer there. Hey, by the way, I'll tell you too, technical problems galore here this morning, but we'll fight through, my friends. Just having some issues with some technology. But we're going to talk about this race. I've got a lot of things I want to get to today in due course, and it's a pleasure again to be here. Friends. Maybe you've reached that stage where managing your money feels more like juggling than just dealing with numbers. You've got tax planning, you've got estate work, you've got investment choices, and a whole lot more. That's when Family Office Services can make a big difference. Full Suite Wealth brings all those pieces together into one cohesive strategy. Their Family Office Services give you access to a coordinated team with advanced options, strategies, private equity, private credit, and legal expertise to boot. All those things, my friends, under one roof. It's about simplifying your financial life, planning for the future, and making sure your legacy stays strong for generations. If you're ready for that next level of support, head on over to fullsuitewealth.com. That's fullsuitewealth.com. Build your legacy. Secure your future. So, Graham Platner is holding the Democrat Party hostage. It's like a hostage negotiation. You might remember yesterday we talked a little bit about this. Graham Platner has been accused of rape. He's been accused of rape. And we've since learned, I don't think I mentioned this yesterday, but the latest accuser, she told the New York Times off the record some of these things that she had recently shared. She was in an interview with Jake Tapper. That's one of the things that I was going to play clips from that here today, but I've had some technical issues that are just not cooperating here. But she had an interview with Jake Tapper talking about this. He asked her about the alleged incident. She said that it was definitionally rape. And Tapper also asked her, CNN's Jake Tapper, he asked her, hey, why didn't you say this earlier? She said, I didn't want to be known as a rape victim, and I wanted my privacy. She said not until she got to this point where she realized she would not be having any more privacy. Then she realized, look, I might as well at least go out and talk about it, because this is not going to just simply go away. And so that's where she is. She also said that politically she agreed with. She didn't say it in as many words, but if you listen to the interview, it's clear that she said that she had a struggle. She was trying to decide, she had an inner conflict, whether she should tell the world about these allegations or if she should, I guess, just go along quietly, because she agrees with the politics of Graham Platner. Again, this Democrat from the state of Maine running for U.S. Senate. So if you missed yesterday's program, you can go back in the archives and check that out for more context. But here's the headline again this morning, New York Post, Graham Platner holding Democrat Party hostage, refusing to drop out unless he gets to name his successor, according to sources. This is wild stuff. Washington. Maine Democratic candidate Graham Platner appears to be holding the Democrat Party hostage and is refusing to drop out after being accused of rape unless he gets to approve his successor to run for the Senate. Now, that's according to the Post, New York Post. I shared yesterday that this has to be resolved by, I believe it's Monday, July 13th. Platner has already won the Democrat Party's nomination here to be, to be their Senate candidate in the state of Maine for November, in the November election. And so Platner, everything's fallen apart here on this campaign. He's been accused of rape. He's getting pressure. Even the communist mayor of New York City, Zoran Mamdani, has come out and said, listen, it's time for Platner to resign, to drop out of this race. So there's a lot of pressure here. But Platner says, look, I'm not dropping out until or unless I get to choose my successor. So this is wild stuff. But again, I mean, this is what do you expect? This guy had a Nazi tattoo on his chest, metaphorically, about 5 minutes ago. So continuing here in the article, a source familiar with the campaign discussions said Platner, his campaign, and political strategist Morris Katz, that's K-A-T-Z, are deliberating about the Maine Democrat dropping out, but only if his replacement shares his left-wing values. Isn't this interesting? Friends, I've told you for a long time, and hear me say this, because I know I've got Democrats tuning in. I've got people from Europe tuning in now, from some comments I've made recently about, Belgium's trash talking to the United States in the wake of their 4-1 victory over the U.S. team in the World Cup on Monday evening. Overturned that is what they tweeted, posted on X. I've made some comments. I've talked about how much the folks who came from Europe to the United States, how much they love this country. They realized after getting here that this place was nothing like what they were told. They realized that this place really is the land of the free and the home of the brave. They've got to experience American life at its fullest. They love it. They're here for it. I've commented on that. So we've got people that have tuned in from all different places, but a lot of folks are left-leaning. Now, I want to pause on the political continuum that I operate under. I've talked about this. If you're a listener regularly, sit tight just for a moment. I've got new people to catch up here. But if you look at a political continuum, on the far right is anarchy. Anarchy is where there's basically no rules. It's just kind of like the Wild West. On the far left, you've got totalitarian regimes, which can take a lot of different forms, mind you, including communism, which we have communist mayor Zoran Mamdani in New York City. You've got socialism down at that end. On the left, the left end of as you move from right to left. You've got fascism. You've got heavy-handed, totalitarian, dictatorial types of governments at that end. Where you place them specifically, I suppose, is up to you. But on the other end of the spectrum, on the right end of the spectrum, is not another totalitarian regime. You have no government. That's the correct way of looking at this. Look, I was a political science student at Butler University. I spent a semester through an exchange program at American University. I have sat under some leftist, lunatic, communist, feminist, radical professors, atheists, you name it, my friends. I don't know if I've ever sat under a conservative, but I know I've sat under the teachings of a lot of these other lunatics and knuckleheads out there. And the continuum they normally give you, the traditional one is, well, communism's on the left, fascism's on the right. No, that's not the way to look at this. The way to look at this correctly is to say there are people who want on the side of anarchy, no government, and on the side of heavy-handed, oppressive, controlling, top-down control of the economy, all that stuff is on the left end of the spectrum. Now, conservatism, what this country founded, constitutional framework, conservative government, says we want the smallest government possible to do the things that the people have given the government its consent to do, given the government their consent to do. So we want the government to be as small as possible, yet retaining the ability to do the things that the people have given their consent to do. And so that starts with securing the rights of the individual. That also starts with protecting the nation, which largely has been ignored, especially when you look at border security in this country, unless or until President Trump came onto the scene. And so conservatism, the constitutional framework we have in this country, it says that we want the government to be as small as possible to do what it needs to do, what we've given our consent to do, and nothing more. And people to the left of that are not all radical leftists, right? There are people that are moved all across this spectrum, just based upon their own, political framework and viewpoints and so forth. And you've got Democrats to the left, you've got liberals to the left of that, and then you've got the radical extremists, the godless radical left, on the far end of that spectrum. So not everybody is down there where Platner's talking about, right? He says he wants his replacement to share his left-wing values. I've talked about on this program for a long time. Of course, we're in a cold civil war where we're fighting an ideological battle in this country for one side to win. Is it going to be the side of reason and logic and limited government, the one upon which this nation was founded, or are we going to lose to the lunatics, those who want government to be ever so growing and oppressive, promising to do all sorts of things, creating this utopia on planet Earth, which of course is complete nonsense and utterly ridiculous. But nonetheless, that's what this battle's about. But even a sub-battle, the sub-civil war, if you want to call it that, is the fight for control of each of the two political parties. You've got to fight for control of the Republican Party between conservatives and rhinos. You've got to fight for control of the Democrat Party between leftists and the moderate liberal types. And so Graham Platner is on the left end of that. So he says, listen, if I'm not going to be the nominee here, if you're going to make me resign, if you're going to pressure me like you pressured Biden in 2024, you guys are going to force me out, then I'm going to decide. Remember, folks, listen, this is a mess. This is an absolute mess. This was predictable, as I talked about yesterday. This wasn't like this was sprung upon the voters in Maine yesterday. This latest development was, but none of this is effectively new. These are all things. The guy had a Nazi tattoo on his chest. He told voters he didn't know what it was. He had it removed. That apparently, after having it for like 17 years or some such thing, had it removed. I guess that's enough. These people on the left are out there holding signs on sidewalks, chanting things in their silly little protests, and they're telling us that they're fighting against Nazis. Meanwhile, they are voting for a guy who literally had a Nazi tattoo on his chest. I cannot make these things up, my friends. The level of stupidity or willing ignorance here is off the charts. So Graham Platner, of course, is a leftist. He has lost all support of the Democrat Party, but he holds the reins here. He doesn't have to drop out of the race. Now, I'm sure that the pressure is incredibly high, and I'm sure that the people that are involved in this campaign know that they are all going to be effectively blacklisted if they don't get in line here and do what the Democrat Party wants. But as of right now, at least the information that I have, his party says, his campaign says, look, if you want him to step aside, he gets to decide who his replacement is, which, of course, the left tells us that they're in favor of democracy, right? They're saving our democracy. So I guess, how is a vote for Graham Platner, for him later to resign, and then to hand select his successor? How is that democratic? I'd love for some leftist to tell me. Write me on Facebook. Send me an email, todd@toddhuffshow.com. You can text me, 317-785-1030. You can communicate to me. You tell me how that is democratic to vote for a guy, to nominate a guy who's been now accused of rape, and now he says in order for him to in order for him to drop out, he's going to hand select his successor. What is democratic about that? Please educate me on this. I got more here in this article, my friends. Let me take a quick little breather. Remind you, MyPillow. MyPillow has been a supporter of ours, a partner of ours for several years now. Make great products in the great state of Minnesota. Mike Lindell, the president, CEO of MyPillow, is also now running for governor of the great state of Minnesota. They make products right here in the good old US of A. Great products like pillows, sheets, towels, slippers, dog beds. You can find out more about their products, mypillow.com, and save in the process with code Todd, promo code Todd. So mypillow.com, promo code Todd. Support an American patriot, get a great product, support this program as well, mypillow.com, promo code Todd. But let's get back here to this article. I really want to talk about this because this is wild stuff. We've got effectively a hostage negotiation here where Graham Platner has basically metaphorically locked himself in the room and said, I'm not giving up my candidacy for the U.S. Senate unless you meet my demands, Democrat Party, which is that he gets to be dictator for the day, at least as it pertains to his Senate seat, and he gets to select his successor. Hand select it, which, again, I'm waiting for you on the left and the Democrat Party to tell me how that is pro-democracy. The article continues here. The clock is ticking for Democrats. There's a deadline of Monday for the 41-year-old oyster farmer to withdraw. If he does, the state party officials will then initiate what they've promised will be an open and transparent process to choose another candidate for the ballot. You want to bet this, as I shared yesterday, I alluded to this yesterday. This has echoes of what happened in 2024 all over it. This feels and sounds exactly like what happened in 2024 when Biden was strong-armed out of the election. You could basically, look, the details are different, of course. Biden wasn't accused of rape. I'm not suggesting that he was. But if you take a step back and you look at just the components of this, the pieces of this, what we find is that we have a guy who the Democrats were all on board with not that long ago. We have a guy, Graham Platner here, who was, there were plenty of warning signs for people, plenty of warning signs for Democrats in the Democrat Party. I talked about him on this program. I tried to warn you, Democrats. I tried to tell you that this guy who would have thought had a Nazi tattoo on his chest was not good for the Democrat Party. But yet they didn't listen. They voted for this guy anyway. There were all sorts of warning signs. They totally ignored them, and they've walked themselves into the same exact position they were in 2024. These rape allegations are akin to, I'm not talking about the severity of the crime or anything like that, the wickedness of that. I'm not comparing that. I'm saying that the moment that they have reached this, this seminal moment where they can't get past it anymore, right? Just like Biden's seminal moment where he reached a point to where it was indefensible for the Democrat Party to support this guy any longer. That was the debate back in 2024, the first and only debate between Trump and Biden. So they reached this point. It's all hit the fan metaphorically here. There's nothing they can do, and they're powerless, right? Biden had already won the nomination. There wasn't even another candidate in 2024. And so the Democrat Party power brokers have stepped in that case in 2024, hand-selected Kamala Harris, said that it was protecting our democracy and everything else. It was a transparent democratic process somehow. Again, waiting for an explanation on that as well. We got the same situation here today, a totally preventable situation where a candidate had all sorts of baggage and problems that were there for everybody to see. The Democrat Party ignored them. In fact, they defended this guy. They defended him up until these latest allegations, and now the Democrat Party power brokers are trying to strong arm and push this guy out of the race as well. So that's where we are. It's exactly where we are. And they tell us that now they're going to promise the Democrat Party it's going to be an open and transparent process. Of all the words to choose for this process, for what it's going to be if they successfully, and they more than likely will force this guy out. But for all of the words to choose, open and transparent, those are bold choices, because that, of course, is not how this is going to be at all. Continuing here in the article, let's see. Yes, that's where I left off. This vibes to me like a play from Bernie Sanders to slide in Troy Jackson, another source said. The first source quipped that Platner, these are the sources that gave the Times, or excuse me, the New York Post, information about this. The first source quipped that Platner apparently, quote, assumes whoever might replace him would want a rapist's endorsement. Yikes, that's pretty interesting way and straightforward way of putting that. The candidate has firmly denied an accusation from ex-girlfriend Jenny Racicot on Monday of sexual assault. His team is delusional, this person said, noting that Katz, the campaign strategist who helped elect New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, has been recommending Platner stay in the race. The 27-year-old wonder kid works for Fight Agency, a Democratic political consulting firm that has helped elevate progressive candidates. Here you go. This is exactly what you get. This history repeats itself. This was predictable. This is messy. Now we've got a hostage negotiation standoff between Graham Platner and the Democrat Party. What could possibly go wrong? He wants to be, I'll go ahead and read a little bit more of this as I've got to take a break here in a second. He wants to be the next David Axelrod, and Mamdani is his Obama, a third Democratic source added of Katz. But obviously Mamdani can't be president, so he's trying. I wouldn't say that. I understand with the point here. Mamdani can't be president because he's not born here, but I wouldn't put anything past the left, but he continues. So he's trying to find his white working class candidate to take up that mantle. And I guess that's Graham Platner. In what universe? Think about what this says of the state. If you're a Democrat, I know there are plenty of Democrats out there that have not lost their minds and gone to the extreme radical left. I know that there are, but you think that this is your guy? You think that Graham Platner, this is the where you need to dig into the trenches and fight to defend this guy, his reputation? He's going to be, what, your candidate for president moving forward? Is that really what's going on here? My, oh my, what a mess, my friends. What a mess. I've got to take a time out, though. Looking here at the clock, we've reached the end of the first segment. If you are watching on Facebook Live, we're doing some testing here. I'm going to stop this feed or stop this streaming here, and we'll start a new one in a moment. If you're listening, just sit tight, my friends. Take a quick time out. Be back in a moment. You're listening to Conservative, Not Bitter Talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. I want to shift gears here. Talked enough about Graham Platner. I don't want to talk about that debacle, that mess anymore today. I want to shift gears here. I want to talk a little bit about day 2 of the trial. The trial, which involved the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson is, of course, the one who is charged, the one who is on the defense stand. And I want to talk about this briefly. We don't talk about this a lot on this program. It's not because it doesn't matter. It matters tremendously. It matters tremendously, and I want to share my thoughts on this. I want to share my thoughts on some of the narratives out there. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I don't know how some people sit in front of a microphone, in front of a camera, and say the things that they've said repeatedly about what happened in this assassination of Charlie Kirk. I don't know what all's going on here. I don't pretend to know. I stay in my own in my lane. I don't pretend to know what other people are thinking, what they're trying to accomplish, but I can tell you that it has not been helpful to this situation. And that's even one who says that, hey, we can have free speech. Certainly, we do have free speech, but when you say things freely and you don't, and they turn out not to be true, or they turn out to be misleading, and you double and triple and quadruple. In fact, you double down so many times, I don't even know the word to describe how many times you've done that. It's unbelievable to me There's some damning evidence. There's some damning evidence against Tyler Robinson, who's standing trial for this. So, friends, there's a lot of confusion out there about Kratom. We'll talk about that in just a moment. A lot of confusion about Kratom. You've probably heard the headlines. Most of those headlines are based on the synthetic garbage, the stuff that's not even real Kratom at all. So, real Kratom is natural. Real Kratom is tested. Real Kratom is handled with care, and that's exactly what you get from Christopher's Organic Botanicals. They are a family-run company. They partner directly with farmers in Indonesia. Every batch is lab tested. There are no chemicals. There are no fillers. They take no shortcuts. This is a trusted herbal option that's been used for generations. And it is a real alternative for people looking for something that doesn't come with a warning label a mile long. You can start with their Kratom Starter Pack. Coupon code ToddHuff will save you 10% off your first order. Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Again, that's Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, transparency. Okay, so I want to read a little bit. This is an article in, where is this? This is thefederalist.com. Here's what you need to know about the Charlie Kirk assassination trial, day 2. Let me go back in time, if I may, to last September, when this terrible event took place at Utah Valley University. I remember I first saw the reporting, and you know how people are. They post some graphic things. When I was scrolling through X to try to figure out what exactly had happened, the status of Charlie Kirk's life at that particular point, I had seen you may have seen the video too. It's atrocious. I would not advise watching that video. I didn't know what I was watching. I was just trying to consume and figure out what was going on. And someone had already posted a video, very graphic, very just terrible, absolutely terrible. And so it didn't take long. Didn't take much to realize that he was targeted for his political beliefs, right? I mean, this is an obvious thing at the very beginning. He's out actively sharing his beliefs, answering questions as he always had done, and he did so in such an effective way. I admired what he did and the work that he did. Did not know him personally or anything like that, but just admired his work from afar. What he was doing is exactly the sort of thing that needs to be done. Exactly the sort of thing that needs to be done for us to save this constitutional republic. And he was assassinated in plain sight. And of course, it doesn't take long. You know, I'm amazed. Listen, I will be one to say that there's a lot of what's called conspiracy theories, that turn out to be true. Or there's certainly some, let's say some. There's no doubt that that's the case. And it's also the case that we are routinely lied to by our government. I don't dispute that at all. The people who are on the other side of this fight, the people who are powerful, who don't want you to maintain your liberty, they want to control you. They want less of you. They want fewer people on this planet. These are some terrible, terrible people. And I put nothing past them. And that's never been my objection. These people are absolutely evil. Not every person who disagrees with us politically, but the people who are engineering some of this stuff behind the scenes. They are absolutely evil. They are not interested in truth. They're interested in their own power, their own edification, their own massive egos, what's best for them, the accumulation of wealth, authority, power, and for the rest of us peasants to fall into line and do what we're told, which of course is something at the behest of these leftist, controlling, maniacal lunatics. I don't doubt that they're evil. There's no evil plot that is beyond something that they would do. I grant you that. What I do grant you is their ability to carry these things out. I think one of the greatest things, there's a lot of life in my way of thinking. A lot of life is like riding a bicycle. If you take one view of things, and I'm not saying that it's always moderate, right? I'm not saying that you have to be in the middle of two opposing ideas, that the middle is the right place. What I'm saying is that there are extremes, and there are extremes in the ways that we can choose to look at things. We can either have our head in the sand, this is one extreme, and think that there are no conspiracy theories, to think that everybody's out to just be fair and to promote American liberty and love this country as founded. That's naive. That is living in a fantasy world. That's not what we're up against. The other side is assuming that the people do exist, but they have way more power than they really do. The other side is thinking that they are effectively God, that whatever objective they have, whatever sort of power trip they're on, that they can achieve their mission. And I reject that. These people, listen, at the core of who these people are, is an incredible amount of arrogance. These people are prone to make mistakes. They're very calculating. Don't misunderstand me. They're very shrewd, if you will, but they're also human, and they're driven by pride, and they overestimate their own power because that's who they are. They've deviated from, or that they've chosen, I guess, they've chosen to believe that there is no God, or that they are God. And so once they think that, there's all sorts of mistakes that can be made along that way, along that line of thinking. And that's exactly what happens. And certainly that there are people that want to take out people who speak the truth, who are effective at what they do. There's no doubt about it. But to think that they can pull off perfect operations every time without any sort of hiccup or evidence is wild. So I'm not against conspiracy theories, but I listen, there's a couple people in particular who have gone all in and have said some horrific things about Erica Kirk, about Turning Point USA, about Frank Turek. All these people, they've said some horrific and terrible things about them. And then in the meanwhile, we've got the beginning of this trial. So Tyler Robinson is the individual who's been charged. And I'm going to read here from the Federalist. The court admitted video evidence showing a man alleged to be Robinson jumping off the roof with a long rifle-like object in his hand, concealed by a cloth. Remember, by the way, some of the people out there, and again, I'm not mentioning names, you can infer what you will. But when it comes to the assassination and the death of Charlie Kirk, some terrible things have been said about the people at Turning Point and Erica Kirk and everything else, which again, a free country, but in a country that should be pursuing truth, you got to bring some evidence besides just your wacky ideas. And some people, it amazes me, instead of pursuing the truth, some people want to be entertained. As bad as that sounds, they want to be entertained at some story. It's like a murder mystery. And all the while, I'm over here thinking, we've got the death of a man who was a father, of a young man who had started a movement, who was building something incredible. And people just want to tear this down, or I guess ride the coattails of his to try to get more views and I don't know what's going on here, but it's reprehensible if you ask me. So, but I want to talk briefly. I'm at the end of this segment here. Time's telling me I've got to stop, and I'm going to stop, but I want to pick this up on the other side of the break, talking about some of the evidence that was introduced day 2 of the Tyler Robinson trial, the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk. But I've got to take here, my friends, a quick timeout. You are listening to the home of conservative, not bitter talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Talking here about day 2 of Tyler Robinson's trial, the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk. I want to get to that in just a moment here in our final segment. But friends, I've got a quick question first. Do you know where your money goes after you spend it? If the answer makes you cringe, it's time to check out Freedom Marketplace. We built this platform for conservative businesses to connect with conservatives like you. These are businesses that share your values, businesses that refuse to support leftist candidates and leftist causes. It is free for you to use. There's no login required, though you can certainly make one if you prefer. This is all about keeping your dollars aligned with your principles. Visit freedommarketplace.net today. That's freedommarketplace.net. Liberty and business for all. So I want to talk about this hearing, this day 2 of the trial. And as I say this, remember that there are people out there who are on the record saying that Tyler Robinson was, as a matter of fact, had never been on the campus of Utah Valley University. People saying he was definitely not there on the day of the assassination. People saying that he'd never been there at all. Of course, now we have some evidence in the actual trial. And this is the danger of this stuff. This is why I like to talk about ideas. I like to talk about ideas that can be understood and talked about and explored. And you can come to truth by just studying and thinking about these things, learning, listening to arguments and those sorts of things. You can develop and understand what is true because these things are based in logical, just logic. What makes sense? Why are things the way that they are? When you start talking about events and people as though you know all the information, you're bound to make mistakes because we're dealing with people. People are not always logical. People sometimes do heinous and wicked things. And so the unpredictability of this, mistakes that were made, holes in security, video survey, all these things come together. And now we've got second day, I should say, preliminary hearings for the trial of Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin. If I said the trial, forgive me. But so day 2 of that, as the article says here at the Federalist, saw the introduction of some of the most consequential evidence yet, including video evidence of what appear to be Robinson's movements before, during, and after the shooting. Utah State prosecutors were also able to make major headway in establishing the basis for a victim targeting enhancement on the capital murder charge against Robinson, though the testimony presented has not been officially admitted by the court just yet. Like Monday's hearings, Tuesday's hearings saw the introduction of new people whose roles must be familiar. Readers must be familiar with if they are to understand the investigation, fact pattern, and trial. So it gives the names of the prosecutors, or excuse me, the prosecutor, the defense team, the media, some media witnesses, and so forth. So it says day 2 started off where day 1 ended, with state prosecutors trying to admit an exhibit of a compilation of videos showing a man alleged to be Robinson entering and leaving campus 4 times throughout September 10th, the day Kirk was assassinated, and the early morning of September 11th, which would have been the next day. While Graff, which is one of the people here in on the legal team, decided that the initial video offered by judge, was inadmissible due to alterations made, such as highlighting and zooming and red circles, directing a viewer to focus on certain aspects of the video. Prosecutors were able to find the raw footage that the judge then accepted. Graff was the judge, forgive me, I said prosecutor. The judge then accepted and allowed to be broadcast to the news media. Prosecutors then tried to readmit the initial altered video into evidence, which Graff allowed, but he declined to allow the news media to view it. So remember, we were told that Robinson was not ever on this university campus. It appears that there's now video evidence showing that he was. Robinson's alleged movements on campus show him coming and going twice in the morning of the shooting. The first video shows him parking a silver Dodge Challenger, which Utah Department of Public Safety agent David Hull testified belonged to Robinson, and moving through a parking garage. According to Hull, Robinson made contact with Turning Point USA representatives on this first visit to campus on September 10th. The second video shows the man alleged to be Robinson entering campus on foot, where Hull said Robinson then ate Chick-fil-A around 11 a.m. The third video shows the man alleged to be Robinson coming to campus now with a limp, and that's because it's believed that he had the weapon in the leg of his pants. But while not directly asserted by prosecutors, that limp is implied to be caused by a concealed rifle in Robinson's pants. The man is shown going to one of the center buildings there, where witnesses on Monday said they found a sniper pad in the gravel on the roof. The man can be seen lying prone during the time of the shooting and leaving seconds after shots were fired, though the video does not show exactly who fired the shots. Hull testified that the shots were fired while the individual was on the roof, according to the timeline, and that the person on the roof is, in fact, Robinson. I'm out of time here, my friends, so we'll keep following this in the days to come, but got to wrap up. Have a great day, STG.